course of the summer, I read a fair amount, you could say. Everybody in the comments was clowning on me for posting my May wrap-up in September. But look, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm a busy girl. You know, at least we're here now. And so let's get into it. I'm talking about the last 2 books that I read in May because I filmed my May wrap-up before the end of the month. And then I'm gonna talk about everything I read in June, obviously, July, and August. So, you know, this is gonna be a long one, and I feel like most of my videos are pretty long, but this will probably have to be filmed in 2 parts. Sorry. It's like hot as balls out here. In St. Louis, August, September, well, it is September now. Ooh, when I'm filming this. September, that shit could kill you. It could. The first book that I read, well, one of the last books I read in May was A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, which I listened to this via audio, which was a really good experience, and it really reifies what I was saying in my reading vlog from, at this point, probably a few months ago of my summer, where, like, young adult fantasy novels do not hit the same anymore. I think, like, starting in, like, 2015 or 2016, like, or whenever the fuck Sarah J. Maas started publishing books, like, it started getting really bad because Ursula Le Guin's writing here is so good. It's an imaginative, beautiful world with almost whimsical writing that feels so grounded in a feeling of compassion and love for the world. And yes, it was a delight to read. And then I read the second book, of course, The Tombs of Atuan. Both of these books I rated 4 stars. I think they're really solid young adult fantasy novels, and I think that any fantasy reader could enjoy them. And Ursula K. Le Guin is, like, really mother to a lot of these bitches, you know what I mean? Like, after I read these 2 books, it made me think about how I think it was the Garth Nix series, like Lyrial, Sabriel, feels very inspired by Ursula K. Le Guin, as is, like, Robin Hobb's writing, the Assassin's Apprentice series and trilogy, and that whole world. Like, you can just tell that they were basing their writing off of the type of stuff that they were reading probably when they were growing up, which is Ursula Le Guin, because she is mother to you bitches. Like, she's a genius. It's kind of like how you can really tell when you're reading N.K. Jemison's books that she is an Octavia Butler stan, like a Toni Morrison reader. I think it's really incredible to track the lineage of writers and authors and who they are inspired by. But anyways, enjoyed those 2 books pretty good, pretty immensely, you know? Okay, then the next book that I read was Blessed Water. I'm looking down because my iPad is propped up in front of me right now, so of course, always gotta have the iPad, by Margot Douaihy. Margot Douaihy. Douaihy. I don't know. It's like a French last name because you can really tell that I don't know shit about this author, but, like, you can tell that this author loves and cares about New Orleans. Like, this is a mystery series that is very much rooted in the world of New Orleans, and I think that because this book is the second book in the series, Blessed Water, like, a major theme and a major aspect of the environment is flooding. And as we know, like, Hurricane Katrina's impact on Louisiana, like, cannot be understated as one of the heights of neoliberal death cultism. Like, it is tragic, and this book very much is as well. I think the language is much more rich than I kind of expected it to be, if that makes sense. Like, I think it was the same situation with the first book as well. I forgot what it's called, but this series, it's about a lesbian nun who's tatted as fuck, addicted to smoking cigarettes, and she has to, like, absolve herself or solve sort of murders and, I don't know, just, you know, the things that occur around. Also, I got a tattoo with my best friend literally yesterday, and the, like, bandage over it is low-key. My friend joked that it's because I'm rummaging through my tote bag, and it's true. Like, yeah, and they're about to come over right now so that we can film an episode for our podcast. But anyways, yeah, I got the Saturn, they got the moon, because Love you to the moon and to Saturn. Passed down like folk songs. The love lasts so long. Yes, yes. I'm a Swiftie. So sue me. Kill me. We love that piece of lesbian literature, which is the Song 7 off of Folklore. And we love each other forever. So you just gotta. Anyways. I think this book, Blessed Water, was better than the first book. And I think, like, the way that it portrays the relationship communities and people have with the police is also pretty compelling, because it's like, fuck the police for real, especially when it comes to mystery crime thrillers. I just don't like detective stories. I don't like stories that are implicitly like pro-cop, because that just doesn't even make sense. When have the cops ever like solved a mystery, like, you know, actually brought about justice in this world? Like, very rarely, you know? And also, of course, it's like, that's an inherently fucked up institution. And I think this book really kind of displays that in many ways. And it shows within the world of the diocese and this school that our main character Nun works at, and her fraught history with her, you know, because every lesbian got that one ex, or two exes, or three exes, or four exes, that, you know. But I think, like, this story is really good. I mean, I think that my personal engagement with it is why it's not like a 4-star, but it's a solid like 3.5, you know what I mean? Okay, now let's get into some physical books on my physical TBR that I've helped tackle, and also books that I've like gotten in the past year or months and got to first before reading the hundreds of other books on my TBR, but we don't have to talk about that. Anyways, The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. This book, like, I think I read something somewhere where, or maybe Anya Taylor-Joy said this herself in interviews, where this book was like kind of passed around in artist circles in, like, you know, way back, or whenever it was published. When was this published? 1983. Yeah, so like in the 80s and 90s, I think like a lot of artists would pass this book around, because I think of the way that it describes the process of discipline and working towards what you want, and also being kind of a prodigy, you know? I think that this book was really compelling, and the TV show adaptation, the limited series adaptation that I watched of it years ago, which I adore, and is kind of the reason why my friend gifted me this book, because she knew that I really enjoyed that show. I think that the show was actually like a really solid adaptation of this novel. There were a few very minor changes, I think, in the show compared to the book, but it was really like almost 1-to-1. There were scenes, like, while I was reading this, there were scenes that I was like, I've seen this before, you know? And I feel like if you haven't watched the show yet, you should, but I would actually recommend you reading this book first if you are the type of person who reads something and also watches the adaptation of it, which, as you all know, I am that bitch, you know? So I enjoyed this immensely. It's a 4-star book. It is a really sort of interesting interrogation of a girl who becomes a woman and the ways that she sort of gains power and autonomy through her own means. And yes, it's good. And you know, y'all know I don't really read books by men. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'll read books from like 20th century men, like Walter Tevis and I guess Alasdair Gray, but it's not really my thing. But you know, and you'll see that as we go along. So next book that I read was Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. I mean, I guess that's a man too, but I didn't really care. I picked up this book because I was in the mood for some like dark, kind of weird fantasy, and this delivered, because Someone You Can Build a Nest In is about a sort of shape-shifting creature that lives in like a cave, and like she is a monster. She eats people, and what happens when she encounters this young woman who is sort of in like a royal type of family, who, like, in this family, it's said that the heir has to go find this monster that killed, I don't know, their grandparents or whatever, and like slay them, or else a curse will befall them forever. But she, as like the princess or whatever, as like one of the rich ladies, she is very much heavily abused and mistreated by her family. And so we see the sort of like romance that develops between this woman and this monster. And I think people describe this as kind of cozy, which is interesting to me because I guess maybe, but it felt pretty dark to me. I mean, it was about abuse, it was about violence, it was about narratives we tell ourselves, and there was some like asexual lesbian representation involved, which we love. And yeah, it was a good read. I was pretty enamored by it. I was engrossed with it the whole time, so I would recommend it. It's not too long either, I don't think, which, girl, like, I hate a damn fantasy that's over 500 pages or something. Like, there's no need. There's simply no freaking need. Anyways, next book that I read was Pride and Prejudice in Pittsburgh. Pride and Prejudice and Pittsburgh by Rachael Lippincott, which, look, I had a good ass time with this. 4 stars. It's a lesbian young adult romance, which you know is my preferred type of lesbian romance if you watch my video that has way too many views at this point and was demonetized within the first fucking 10 days. So it's like, YouTube just pissed me the fuck off with that. Which, if you do want to support me, my bindery's in the link below. I have a Substack with a paid subscription sort of model. You can support my podcast's Patreon. Yeah, and you get really good bonus benefits for all of these things, so, you know, tap in. Anyways, Pride and Prejudice in Pittsburgh was a really sweet rendition of a sort of time travel romance narrative where our main character, well, I guess we get both of their perspectives. It's kind of, I think it's a dual POV type of story, but these 2 girls, one of whom is sort of like the young lady of the house whose dad is like, you need to go marry some dude, like, and she's like, I don't fucking want to, because she's a lesbian. And our other main character, who is a girl who, like, is kind of stuck in a rut with her art, because she's an artist. I love an artist story, and you'll see that more when we get into this. This book follows her as she works as she works at her parents' like corner shop in Pittsburgh, obviously, and she's kind of being caught between wanting to, you know, explore something bigger than her world of Pittsburgh and pursue art school, and also kind of like being rooted at home because she loves her parents. She has a really good relationship with them, and even though they're not rich, you don't get rich running a corner store, like, it's been an institution in their family for a long time. Well, at least since her dad kind of started it, so she's like, well, who's gonna run this after me? Like, she has a really good relationship with all the members of her community who come in pretty regularly, and it's one of those members of the community who come in and throws her like a coin, and once the coin like flips and she ends up going into the past, into like the 19th century or something. It's a really funny and sweet book as well, even though it does touch on a lot of stuff about, you know, like being a lesbian under really tough circumstances and, you know, coming of age, becoming a young adult, like wanting to become better at your art, but being in sort of an art block situation, like aspiring for goals that feel like they're out of reach. It has some, you know, it talks about some like sort of important and tough experiences that teenagers have, yet also it is infused with a lot of joy and humor. Like, I was giggling and laughing out loud throughout the entire first like 3 to 4 chapters because it was just really funny and endearing. I think these characters were pretty memorable, very sweet. Their relationship was adorable. This was a solid young adult romance, and you should check it out if you're a lesbian romance reader. So 4 stars. Next book that I read was Island Rule by Katy M. Flynn, which I rated 4.5 stars, but I'm gonna be honest, I feel like I read way too many short story collections. They all start blending together at a certain point, and if you watch my 100 best books of the 21st century video, you'll know this. Like, I'm a big short story girl. And what I do remember about this, even though I did really enjoy it when I did finish it initially, was that there were some threads that were sort of tangled throughout the entire narrative, even though it is like a short story collection, that I found really like satisfying, and it felt purposeful, I guess. I think the reason why I rated it 4.5 stars and then rounded it up to a 5-star rating on Goodreads was because I thought that the average rating on this book, which only has like 139 ratings total on it, it's a little bit abysmal. 3.4 stars. Like, I don't think that this book deserves that. You know what I mean? So sometimes I kind of take a curved grading approach to my Goodreads ratings, gonna be honest. But also, I feel like I'm a little bit too low in the frame. What if I sat on top of this? Sometimes, usually when I film, I'll like sit on top of this. Is that better? Is that better? Also, like, the backs of my knees are getting really sweaty. They are, because I'm a sweaty ass bitch. But wow, guys, I'm so energized right now. Like, do you see? I had a shot of one of these. My Magic Mind. It's like a little like juice shot, right? And that's why I'm talking so fast and being so sharp in this video. Like, low-key, wait a minute. This might be the tea. Like, I'm heavily enjoying this. And if you think that my vibe right now is like good, I feel good, and I feel like I'm really getting my thoughts across the screen in this recording in a fast enough way. Because usually my ass is sitting here talking for way too long about every book. But as you all know, I'm a pretty busy woman, and this is a product that really helps me be able to focus and get the energy I need for the day without having to rely on caffeine, which I, like many people, am heavily reliant on. This particular shot is like a mental performance shot. It really enhances my focus, mental clarity, motivation, and productivity while reducing stress. Magic Mind's mission of being more efficient and enjoying your day while using ingredients that are entirely doctor validated, backed by over 200 studies, made up of ingredients like organic mushrooms, matcha, nano encapsulation technology that allows these benefits to be absorbed into your body 5 to 10 times faster than traditional pills or powders, are beneficial to me as someone who works and makes content and studies all at once. This has been really helpful for me. I've been using it for the past few weeks or so, and it's been really helpful, honestly. And actually, one of my best friends who I recorded the podcast with after recording this video, they also took one of the shots and they enjoyed it as well. So use my code down below for 48% off your first subscription for the next 10 days at asunnybook20. It's linked down below. Thank you so much to Magic Mind for sponsoring this. I think this brand is really exciting and doing something really cool and new, and I love that because, girl, I drink way too much coffee. I just got this water bottle, so it has no stickers on it, but trust, it will be covered in stickers very, very soon. Well, it's like a coffee mug. It's from Owala, which I swear to God, everybody these days has an Owala water bottle or like tumbler or something. And I'm sorry, I had to buy into the hype. Like, anyways. So the first story was so compelling. Basically, this mom turns into a monster. And then there's like San Francisco-based worlds and like this man who is an author or like a writer, and he's kind of like in a weird situation. He's like always on the phone with his agent, and then we follow the agent's story, and then we also have like the child of the mom who turned into a monster, this couple who basically runs into her. It's a really cool sort of story collection. It does feel kind of Karen Russell if you enjoyed Vampires in the Lemon Grove or whatever her other short story collection was. I think she has another short story collection, but yeah, and almost kind of like has a Lauren Groff sort of realism at some points, and like a sort of rendering of reality and a world that is like so real and yet also kind of fantastical at once. And I think that it was a real cool exploration of like humanity, womanhood, and coming of age, love. Like, I just love a short story collection that is able to cover all of these things in ways that feel satisfying. And I think that the first short story like gave me a lot of hope for the rest of them, and I wasn't really let down. I mean, I think really my memory of this book is kind of just like blurry, mostly because I read this when I was in China. Like, I was traveling over this summer, and so there were just books that like I read or I listened to when we were going places, and I don't really have that solid of a memory of it anymore. but I still really enjoyed them in that moment. So yes, this is a solid one. If you're a short story collection girl, if you're a magical realism enjoyer, if that sounds of any interest to you, you should check this book out, because I don't like to see a book that's actually well written be rated lowly. I don't like to see it. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's just. I think we need to balance the digital universe with truth, with some truth, you know. Then the next book that I read was Biketopia, a feminist bicycle science fiction story in extreme futures, edited by Elly Blue. This short story collection was not memorable. 2 stars, 2.5 stars even. Like, there were some stories in it that I was like, this is half-baked as fuck. And then there are some that I was just like, this is not the gag that you think it is. But at the same time, like, I can't hate too much because I'm a feminist and I do love a bicycle. I do love a bike. I mean, I don't really have much to say about it besides that. I wouldn't really recommend it because it didn't really give me what I was hoping for, but I can't hate too much. Next book that I read was Erasure by Percival Everett. This book I think was adapted into like an A24 film called like American Story or something along those lines, and I remember we watched clips of that like in a class, and I was like, okay, wait, this is kind of tea. So I checked the book out, I read it, I listened to it, which was a delightful experience as well, and I thought that it was really funny. Like, it's obviously a satire about the publishing industry and racism and being a Black author, what that means, what that looks like, what the expectations for your work are, how people critically judge and assess that work. It is so, like, on point. It is smart, it is sharp. It feels kind of like Mona by Paula Alexarik. I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Oh, sorry. But, like, it has that sort of thing where it's like, what does it mean to be a writer from this particular background and, like, the expectations upon you. And, like, our main character, who is an author of sort of, like, what he considers to be highbrow literature, he takes on sort of a pseudonym, and his agent is like, this book that you wrote is, like, atrociously racist, because he wrote a satire about sort of Black life from the urban ghetto and, like, what that looks like, because that's what people want to read. And because he's bitter about this woman who, like, wrote a book about a similar thing, so he wrote a more extreme version of that as a piece of satire, but then we see it goes out into the world, and what he expects to come of it is not what comes of it. No one gets the message. Nobody reads that and is like, oof, this is racist as fuck. And, like, the imposition of particular narratives on Black writers in the publishing industry and in the world is fucked up, deeply anti-Black, a deep rejection of Black people's humanity, especially for those who are from actual, like, impoverished backgrounds. And I mean, I think our main character also isn't faultless. Our author is critical of him as a writer as well. Like, in the narrative itself, he's not presented as an objectively sort of good guy, but it's still done in a way that is like, you get the point. Like, if you the book makes it very obvious what the point is, and the different excerpts of the book that he wrote, like, of the author in, like, the in-text novel, astonishingly horrific. It's written in a vernacular, but, like, not in, like, a classy chic way that, you know, like, Zora Neale Hurston sort of started. It's bad. And I think the audiobook really helped lean into that as well and sort of express what the fuck was going on and the fucked up shit of this world, but it was good. What can you say? Next book that I read was How to Kill a Guy in 10 Ways by Eve Kellman, which I think is pretty cute and delightful. Like, How to Get a Guy, or what is it? How to Get a Guy in 10 Days? I have not watched that. Sorry. But this, I love when a romance novel or, like, a mystery novel or a thriller sort of takes a saying, a song lyric, something, like a movie title, a book title, like, and just, like, remixes it. I think it's really cute, like, most of the time when that shit happens. Anyways, so How to Kill a Guy in 10 Ways is about this woman who runs a sort of, like, help network. Okay, so basically our main character is named Millie, and Millie has a, like, free service that she does called M, like Message M. So like she puts up like signs and pieces of paper in the bar bathrooms and stuff that are like, feeling unsafe, that creepy guy not taking no for an answer, like, is he following you home? Do you feel like, is there something that you need to get out of the situation? And so she like works that hotline essentially herself. Like, this is her project that she does, which is amazing and incredible. And I think our main character is really like astonishing to follow in that way. But what happens is like she's out one night and she finds a girl in a really bad circumstance. She helps her like save her through it, but in the process she accidentally kills the guy who was date raping her. She's like, I don't know what the fuck, like, this is crazy. But then throughout this book she also gets into a relationship with a cop, which is like, ooh girl. And so we see kind of the ways that this plays out, like as she ends up kind of going on a killing spree. I mean, like as you should, of all these like rapists and abusers. But, you know, the cops are on her scent, low-key, at least this guy that she's dating is. And she has to, like, act normal about it the whole time. Like, my heart was beating a mile a minute. And her best friend, though, is, like, a lawyer. And she's, like, a bad bitch. And the thing is that Millie, our main character, she's not very good at being able to, like, work her job. I think she works at, like, a photo place, like a film development. Work her job, maintain her friendships. She has a sister who, and this is a real big part of her backstory, is that her sister was raped in college and she was at like a top university. I think this is set in the UK. Yeah. She was raped at a top university and like she's been like bedridden essentially for like a year since. Also, our main character was molested as a child by her own father. We see the way that violence against women and girls leaves its mark on people throughout the course of this novel. And then we see Millie take revenge and things spiral from there. But the ending of this book was a fucking gag and a half. Like, it was so good. I loved it. I loved this book so much. I rated it 5 stars. I was like, this is so good, because our main character, like, she's not like up her own ass. Like, she is a real grounded bitch who's trying to avoid prison time, but also wants justice for women. She's sick and tired of this shit. Like, really, her goal was always just to help people without getting them in danger or hurting anyone in general. She wants to, you know, stop the violence. But what ends up happening is she kills a lot of dudes, which is tea. We love it. So then the next book that I read, we're following a theme here, is How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katy Brent. So this book, I mean, similar kind of premise, you know what I mean? Like a kind of thriller about a woman who, my audio stopped recording for when I was filming this. You know, finally cicadas have gone back into the dirt or whatever the fuck they do, because, you know, the past few videos, people have been in my comments like, something is fucked up with your audio. And I'm like, I know, it's the bugs outside, I can't help it. But now I fucked it up on my own. Well, anyways, moving on. Oh wait, I forgot to tell you when I was reading these. Yeah, the first book I read in July was How to Kill a Guy in 10 Ways. All the books that I talked about before that I read in June. And How to Kill Men and Get Away with It is the second book that I read in the month of July. So in How to Kill Men and Get Away with It, our main character is like a rich girl influencer, like Instagram model down. She's independently wealthy. Her dad owns like a meat company. Basically, like what's a meat company now? Oh, this is also set in the UK, which is tea. I've read a lot of books lately that are kind of set in the UK about women who kill men, which is like tea. Like we need more like rapist revenge women killing stories set in the US, because, you know, we need that here too. This book, she's just really rich, wealthy. She has these beautiful, wealthy friends who are also influencers, who are also independently wealthy. So yeah, and so her dad owns like a meat factory farm, and she is vegan. Like, she is vegan down. She does not fuck with eating animals, because obviously, like, she grew up in that world. Like, she goes to the slaughterhouse, like, when she was a little kid. She remembers being in the car with her dad going to the meat factories. She ends up getting with this guy who is a real gentle soul who's like a philanthropist for real. Like, he's also low-key kind of independently wealthy, but he started his own sort of nonprofit that helps refugees or something. And so she like ends up sort of getting with him throughout the course of this novel, but she also ends up killing rapists. The stakes are really high. Like, the violence and the gore is really there in this, and the way that her rich girl lifestyle is described and how she has to contend with like the morality of being a wealthy white woman versus the kind of reality of sexual violence against all women, any woman from any background, is kind of almost loosely explored in this, but it's not too delved deeply into, and our main character is not seen as, unlike in the previous book I was talking about, where Millie is very much a hero until she fucks up, like, our main character here is kind of an anti-hero. Like, she is not really a good person. She's trying to become a better one, and we see that in the process of this story, but like, that's not like how she naturally is. I guess she kind of gets pushed into this corner. We see how shallow she is, basically. Like, we see how she's kind of bored with her life, because who wouldn't be bored if all you had to do was like make money from posting photos of yourselves and go out to brunch at really expensive places with your friends every day and go party every night. Like, you know, like, she lives a really shallow life, but then she finds her purpose. She finds her purpose, and that, all you can do is applaud. You know what I mean? Like, this is another really fun book. I mean, both these two books are fun. That's why I had to read the other one after the first one, because I was like, I need to stay in this world. I need to stay in this world where we have a main female character who's a little bit deranged, but like, in ways that make sense. Like, it's not for no reason, if that makes sense. It's just good. I'm gonna eat it up every time. If you have any books that are about women killing men who are rapists, reply, comments, recommendations, please! Next book that I read was Moonbound by Robin Sloan, because I really liked his two other books, Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore, and also I love Sourdough. I think Sourdough is on my shelf somewhere. Yeah, right here. Right here, off camera, or off this frame. Love those books. But Moonbound is sort of like an Arthurian retelling, and it's really wacky. Has dragons in it, like kind of space opera-y, like so wild. But I'm gonna be honest, I read a lot of this I listened to this via the Libra FM influencer program. Thank you so much to them. You should use my link below if you would like to get a free audiobook credit. And then once you do the free audiobook credit, I get a free audiobook credit, and everybody cheers. Basically, this book, I was kind of high as fuck when I was listening to it. I'm gonna be honest. So I don't really remember much of it, but I remember that it was fun, and it was like a 3-star read. It wasn't nowhere near on the level of Mr. Penumbra and Sourdough, I'm afraid. Like, it's just but maybe it's because it's more fantastical and kind of has a high fantasy sort of vibe that I wasn't necessarily expecting from him, because his other books are kind of more grounded, I guess. They're weird, they're a little wacky, they're quirky, but they're not really out there. But this book is literally called Moonbound, you know what I mean? Like, shit goes down. I think that you would enjoy this if you are like a quirky fantasy enjoyer that enjoys some fun and some liveliness in their fantasy. You should pick this one up, but wasn't really for me. The next book that I read was Goldenhand by Garth Nix, the 5th book in the Abhorsen series, which I was referencing this when I was talking about the Ursula K. Le Guin at the very beginning of this video. Goldenhand. This is another really solid book in a really solid series. There's not much else to say, because I can't really talk about what happens in this book without spoiling the first 4 books in the series, so just read it. If you like a warm sort of fantasy world where we're following young main characters who come into their power, who are invested in worlds that are magical in beautiful ways, you gotta check it out. Then the next book that I read was The Material by Camille Bordas, which thank you so much to Penguin Random House for sending me this copy, because I remember I was telling y'all in my vlog that I had read this. I'd listened to the audiobook, and because of the Libra FM influencer program, thank you to them again, and that I found it kind of mid, I'm gonna be honest, but let me describe it, and then if you're interested, I do have an advanced reader copy that, what the hell is that that I'm willing to give away if you pay for shipping. So, you know, message me on Instagram if you want the ARC, or comment down below and give me a way to reach out to you, because I would be so happy to send this to anyone. Because what the fuck am I going to do with an ARC and the actual hardcover copy of a book, you know? Anyway, so this is a book about comedians. They are a group of students at a comedy sort of program in Chicago or something like that. Chicago type of comedy program, which is, you know, weird, but we get the perspectives of all these different characters, like who's into who, like who thinks what of what jokes, what backgrounds they're from, why they make the jokes that they do, how they're flopping with their stand-up pieces, and then like the professor, like why he's there, him trying to source this other comedian dude who's getting canceled right now for cheating and sleeping with a young woman and doing weird sex stuff with her or something like that. This book sort of tries to examine like a Me Too world, you know, the woke left comedy type thing in kind of a removed lens through the eyes of characters who all have different levels of investment in that. They all have different skin in the game when it comes to that sort of thing. It's well written, you know, I can't really fault that. I think it was actually just like the material of this novel that wasn't really like hitting it for me. Wasn't really, I kind of expected more, and I expected it to be funnier because it's about comedians, you know, but it was kind of just pathetic. Like, unless you find pathetic people and pathetic shit happening to pathetic things, to pathetic people, and find that kind of like funny or enjoyable, I don't think that's too funny, you know? I've read way funnier books. I mean, even I've mentioned in this video alone that like don't have comedians as main characters, but also like I guess that is part of the commentary, perhaps. It's like, comedians aren't funny, bro. Like, comedians aren't funny, dude. Like, they're just, by and large, like, so many of them are just not. And it's also, like, the kind of satirical, like, dark academia sort of vibe, like, grad student sort of romanticization situation of people who are in school to learn how to do comedy, but none of them really are learning anything or being funny or advancing their careers for real. So what are we doing here? And I feel like a lot of grad school stories are that, and it can get a little old, but look, you know, maybe it's because I've read too many of those types of stories. Although there's another book that's coming up in this video that I'm not, or maybe in a future video, because maybe I don't have time to finish this in one go, and then I have to film a part 2, which you know how it goes. But yeah, this is another book I read in July that I was just like, wow, this is kind of a joyless character book. Like, this is the type of book that like all the people in it, all the characters in them are just like, okay, I don't actually give a fuck about you. But if you do enjoy that, and you do enjoy this sort of like dry litfic, let me know, because I'll send you the ARC. I will. 3 stars. The next book that I read was Here in the Dark by Alexis Soloski. This book, I was reading this in that vlog I spoke of earlier, and it was bad. It was so bad. Watch that vlog if you want to know like my real thoughts about everything that was going on in this, but like, this is a kind of almost suspense type of novel that was not good. Not good at all. Like, what? How the fuck did this get published? Anyways, okay. Next book that I read, which was much better, was Light in Gaza, Writings Born of Fire. That was edited by Jihad Abu Salim and some other people. This book was incredible. I mean, it's an anthology of people who are very, very smart, who have a lot of education, have a lot of really compelling and vulnerable experiences that they're sharing with us about being from Gaza, being in the diaspora from Gaza, going back to Gaza, trying to build houses for these. We get an essay from an architect, we get stories from a queer poet, we get an essay from an English teacher in the community, and we get an essay from Dr. Rafat Alawier, who, you know, rest in peace to him. Like, seriously, I really think about him regularly. This essay collection, because it was published semi-recently, but of course the writings that were being sourced for it were from previous years, and it's been a work in progress because I feel like a lot of anthologies are that way. All of these essays talk about the most recent aggressions in Gaza that were before October 7th, before 2024 or 2023. So most recently 2021, I think 2019, 2014, those aggressions, and the hundreds of people who were murdered by the Zionist regime, and the hundreds of people who were put in prison, who came out of prison as political prisoners, because there's no Palestinian prisoner who is not a political prisoner. I'm sorry, like, that's just the case. And this is a book that really, I think you should read my Goodreads review of it, because I feel like YouTube will really censor me for saying what I really want to say about this, but like, this is a book that I think you should really read. It's beautiful, it is heartbreaking, and it really puts you in the shoes and the direct experiences of people who have gone through the worst things imaginable, but who still have families and research and writing and lives to live. This book really, really shows that. It's really good. Okay, I think I'm gonna end this recording now here, since I've gotten through half of July and all of August and the beginning and the end of May books. So I'll come back at you with the rest of my July reads, my August reads, and then I guess some of my September reads as well for part 2 of this like very belated summer wrap up. But thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to Magic Mind for sponsoring this video and sponsoring the energy I'm having currently. Make sure to check them out. Link in the description. Check out my bindery, my Patreon for the podcast. Check out my podcast. Check out my Substack. I'm writing more lately. I'm really excited about it, and yeah, check it out. Alrighty, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching once again. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!